30 years of service, combat medals, citations, only man to down 3 enemy aircraft in the last 40 years. Ha! Wrong, Ed Harris. Hey everyone, my name's Vincent Aiello. I'm the host of the Fighter Pilot Podcast. And no, it's not me. It's retired United States Air Force Colonel Cesar Rodriguez, call sign Rico. And he downed 2 enemy MiGs in Desert Storm and a third in Allied Force. And it's all in his F-15 Eagle. And he stopped by the show to talk about it last summer, 2020. We had a 2-hour discussion. And what I want to play for you now for about the next 40 to 45 minutes is some excerpts of that. So you'll see some chops and cuts. But this is Rico talking about his experiences. Check it out, and I'll talk to you on the back end. Hope you enjoy it. Recording. All right. Hello, Rico. How are you?
Jello, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. All right. Welcome to Happy Hour. Let's see. What have you got?
I've got Tecate.
Oh, well, that is appropriate. You're down in Tucson, right?
That's right.
Okay. I've got a local Coronado Brewing Company Islander IPA.
Very nice.
So cheers, sir.
Cheers. Salud.
Oh, man. Anyway, I wanted to do some research on you, but the only thing I know leading into this conversation is Top Gun Maverick trailer begins with Ed Harris saying a bunch of things about Tom Cruise. And one of them, he says, the only man to shoot down 3 MiGs in the last 30 years. And that's not true, is it?
Well, it's definitely not Tom Cruise.
Well, I know, but don't we know somebody here who has done something like that?
Yeah, I have been credited with 3 air-to-air kills in the last 30 years, post-Vietnam era.
Wow.
And so, I heard that trailer and I actually said, oh, they're going to say my name. and then they screwed it up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're just as good looking as Tom Cruise, if I may say so, sir. But anyway, all right. Well, that's awesome. Let's talk about it. And I think I have a book over here with at least one of your stories. But you have kills in the F-15, which is behind you there. Nice background. Thank you.
Yeah. So courtesy of some very, very close friends that I can't reveal their name because they're actually in combat operations today.
Oh, wow.
Once a year, I get a nice postcard from the dedicated crew chief and the pilot whose name is on my jet. So 114 is right behind me. She is currently flying combat operations over the CENTCOM AOR.
And that's the one you got some kills in?
That's the one I got 2 of my kills in.
Wow.
On the 19th and the 26th of January in 1991.
Okay.
And then my 3rd kill was in 169 when I was with the Grim Reapers. We called her the Love Machine. And that was on the 24th of March of 1999.
Okay. So for our non-history students in the crowd, 1991 was Desert Storm. 1999
Correct.
was Allied Force?
Correct. Operation Allied Force,
Okay.
NATO's first air campaign.
All right. Okay. So, all right. So let's start at the beginning. Where are you from?
So I'm an Army brat, born in El Paso, Texas.
Oh.
Traveled all around the world, mostly South and Central America with my dad.
Okay.
After we did the whole Army tour, I went to the Citadel and then went to the Air Force from there. Graduated from the Citadel in 81.
So you go to flight school, you do sufficiently well. Do you pick Eagles right away, or do you do a FAPE, I guess they call it, or what do you do?
No, I actually I miraculously completed flight school. Didn't do very well in the first phase of it. T-37s was a little bit of a rough start. T-38s, I was lucky enough to get an instructor, former F-4 pilot, Wheels Wheeler, was my instructor, and he sat me down on day one and said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to go fly fighters." And my seatmate next to me, he says, "I want to go fly 141s." And the other guy said, "Hey, I think I want to stick around and be a T-37 or T-38 IP or a FAPE." Mm-hmm. And then he very quickly said, "Well, I don't know what I'm going to do for you guys because I don't, I'm not a heavy pilot, and I'm not a fan of being a FAPE or a IP here. But Rico, you and I are going to sit together and we're going to walk this path. And so a long hill climbed together with wheels. And I was able to select an A10 when the draw came down for my drop.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I started out in the A10. Yeah, I flew it for 2 years.
Okay.
Went to Holloman for fighter lead-in, and then I went to Davis-Monthan for A10 training.
Okay.
And then so I went to Korea and started out in the Hog down there. And what was normally a 1-year assignment turned out to be a 2-year assignment because we had just built that squadron literally from scratch. Everybody arrived almost at the same time. So everybody was going to PCS at the same time. And so my squadron commander said, hey, you've been here a lot for a full year. You've done a lot of good things as a lieutenant. If we upgrade you to IP and make you a mission commander and everything else, would you stay around for another year? And I said, sure, I'll take that job any day. And so in the course of 2 years, I accumulated a little over almost 900 hours in the A-10.
Holy cow.
I was, as a lieutenant, I was the DETCO for 4 deployments down to Cape Thunder in the Philippines. And then so I flew my tail off when I was there at Suwon. We all did.
Yeah, I mean, guys are lucky to get 150 hours a year right now. That's 450 hours a year. Holy smokes. There's not too many guys that go from A-10s to F-15s, are there?
No, actually, not many. And the real, there was many of the leadership team in Holloman who questioned my sanity and my logic, my thinking is that why the hell are you asking for an F-15 out of Holloman? You're going to get whatever you want. And I said, well, I wanted to fly an F-15 from the very get-go. So I want to do it again, try it. So sure enough, got an F-15, got it to Eglin, and I went to Tyndall for F-15 training.
Oh, cool. What year did you first fly the F-15 or go to Tyndall then?
1980, the fall of 88.
Okay, so by the time Desert Storm kicks off, you're not a new pilot by any stretch, but also you've got a couple of years in the Eagle at that point. I mean, do you go to a deploying squadron after your training, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I went to Eglin with the 58th Fighter Squadron down at Eglin, the Guerrillas. So in August 1990, I was at Gulfport, Mississippi.
Okay.
I was leading a detachment of 6 F-15s against the Missouri Guard, who were getting ready to retire their F-4s and then eventually receive the F-15.
Okay.
And so we were fighting for a week. On the last day, I want to say it was a Thursday, there was this big, huge blowout planned for that evening. We went out and did a 6V, I want to say 14. It could have been 16, but we smoked them. There wasn't a single one left, and they're like going, damn, this F-15 is badass, and we're glad we're getting it. And so as we got back and we're coming back up initial, I get a call from the top 3 on the desk, and he says, hey, Rico, I need to talk to you when you shut down. And he says, tell everybody not to open a beer. And I go, okay. So I pass it on to the guys and said, okay, something's going on. But we get down, we land. The top 3 says, hey, the squadron wants you to put the jets back on, take the jets back to Eglin tonight. So we need to pack up, get everybody out of here, and then we'll get everybody home tomorrow once we get you guys out of here. So I called back to Eglin, and I talked to the Eglin guys. They said, yeah, bring it on in. So sure enough, we land about 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And the entire ramp was lit up with light-alls and everything you can imagine. Weapons trucks were flying left and right, delivering live weapons to the jets. Wow. And so we were loading the jets. to go to respond to the Iraqi invasion. That's where we were in August. My daughter was born in July.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. So, and by the end of the month, we were on the road, headed to Desert Shield.
You said, I think earlier, January 19th. Let's talk about 16 through 18. Are you flying patrol missions the first few nights of the war?
Yeah. So for us, the night of the 16th in the region, I flew the last 4-ship that was Desert Shield.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so
Right.
we took off, and basically we had a lot of what I would call cat and mouse type of runs to see if anybody was awake.
Okay.
We were checking, to see if if the Iraqis were doing anything. Were they doing anything out of the normal that our sensors could pick up? So we did that, and the normal, 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening, we are, checking out and headed north or headed west back to our base. And again, not trying to elevate or raise any awareness, and so by that time, a lot of the airplanes had already started to launch to the south, and then they were headed to the refueling tracks for the eventual night one push. The first few days, it was really from I was on a DCA rotation, and so on the morning of the 17th, that day I flew 3 times. On the 18th, I flew 3 times.
Yeah. All right. So you started talking about the morning of the 19th.
Yeah. So we took off like at 4 in the morning. It was initially, that vol period started at 6 in the morning. So took off, hit the tankers, took over relief of the cap. We did about 2 hours of cap time. And then AWACS called us up and said, hey, you guys, the OCA for this strike package that's being picked up is stuck on the ground. They were Langley birds. They were weathered out. Mm. And so so AWACS asked us, they came up and said, hey, the new OCA is scrambling out of Tabuk, and they're asking for you to send a 2-ship to the tanker to be ready to be the post-strike sweep. So I sent 3 and 4 first to the tanker to manage to get as much gas as they could, and they would manage the DCA cap. And then Craig Underhill and I took, after they got back on station, we went to the tanker and started, refueling, and then getting on frequency with the new strike package and what they were going to do. And this strike package, outside of the ATO, they had found a large munitions storage area southwest of Baghdad, about 60 or 70 miles. And they had been tracking some vehicles going underground and all that. So they said, okay, it wasn't on a normal target list. So they scrambled all the strikers, air-to-air, harm shooters, you name it. They were all part of this strike package. And so we were going to be the 2-ship post-strike sweep for this event. And then it just so happened that Rick Delaney's 4-ship was the one who was on alert. They scrambled. Rick and I, obviously we're in the same squadron. We have the same squadron standards. So the basic briefing was everything is standard. Nice. And off we went. When the strike package pushed, Rick Delaney's 4-ship engaged a series of MiGs and one F1, 2 MiG-31s and an F1 it was the final count that we had. AWACS at some points tended to think that there was more in the air, but that was really all that we had radar data on. Mm-hmm. Rick and Cherry Pitts end up scoring two kills in that group. The F1 that kind of cut through the formation and then dove into the clouds below below the where the guys were flying, was never we never targeted him again. Nobody ever saw him again.
Okay.
But what bottom line is, Rick and his 4-ship had jettisoned all their fuel tanks, and they never made it to the target area.
Oh.
So strike leaders said, we're going to press anyway, and it made sense. They were also carrying air-to-air AMRAAMs with the F-16s, and so. But at the time, once we got that word, Mole and I pushed it up into the high 50s and pushed out in front of the strike package to get caught up with them and then get out in front of them. And as we were getting out in front of them, we started to build a radar picture that had one group way out to the west, which really wasn't a factor per se, and then one group that was starting to generate outside of Baghdad and came on a direct vector towards the leading edge of the strike package. So that's the group that we pretty much focused our attention on.
Yeah. Hey, can I interrupt? You said MiG-31. Did you mean 23 or 25? I don't think Iraq had MiG-31.
No, excuse me, 25s. 25s.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
Very similar,
Yeah.
but
Nope.
okay. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Now, up until this point, hold on, let me interrupt again. Sorry. Up until this point, had there been other kills? So the flight right ahead of you got 2. What about like on the opening night or 2 or 3 of the war? Were other guys getting kills? Was it fairly common or fairly rare still?
No, I would say, so opening night, JB Kelk scored a kill. We had 3 kills in our squadron on opening night.
Wow.
And then Langley had 1 kill on opening night.
Okay.
So there was a total of 4 that were credited on opening night. Day 2, Sly McGill and Rory Drager scored air-to-air kills. And then so here we are going into day 3, and so we get 2 ship first, and then Mole and I will eventually get 2 more that day.
Wow.
So there was definitely opportunity, but when you think about it, you count all the F-15 and all the air-to-air shooter noses that were in the AOR, it probably felt like a very limited opportunity for most folks. So Mole and I, we concentrate our efforts on the MiG-29s. We don't know they're MiG-29s at the point, but they're coming out of Baghdad. But what becomes very clear in what they end up doing, they come at us in a res cell, i.e. we can't break them out on the radar, a very tight formation. When they start to break out of their res cell into a tactical formation, so now they're flying about a mile a line abreast, they take it down. They start out around 8 to 10,000 feet. They take it down. We're still now in the high 30s. We're ramping down from 50 to 30. They take it down at exactly 12 nautical miles. Boom! They take a beam maneuver, which for those who are on the call, that was a known, not a publicly known, but it was a known tactical deficiency in our radar, that we had some blind zones, and they hit the blind zones exactly, on the number.
Oh, wow.
And so Mole and I break lock. We knew what to do. We start to pick them up as they're in their beam maneuver. And then as they're in their beam maneuver and they start to drag, they literally are dragging initially right outside of the ragged edge of an AIM-7 shot, a Sparrow shot. Okay. But as we're ramping down, we're starting to pull them into the WES. But as you well know, with a Sparrow, you got to hold the missile until impact. It's not like an AMRAAM, which you can shoot and launch and leave. And so, literally, as the MiGs are starting to, they're in the heart of the envelope for a Sparrow. Period. Dot. I hear the strike package leader call Miller time, which was the code for the last guy is down the chute. Okay. And then I'm getting ready to hit the button for Mole and I to abort when my original AWACS controller, remember, when I started out DCA, I was in Western AWACS. I flowed into now an OCA mission inside of Central AWACS's control. My original Western AWACS controller Mark Boner White. He calls out on guard, Sitco pop-up contacts 330 for 8. So mathematically, I've got 2 MiG-29s dragging in front of me at about 11 miles, and they don't have opening VSUBC, but I can catch them if I want to.
Mm.
But I also know that I'm also going to now enter into the MES for Baghdad.
Okay.
The strike package has done their business, so I really don't need to be here anymore. And now, off of my left 9 o'clock, which is 330 for my formation, 8 miles, my original AWACS controller says somebody is there that you don't want to be there. So immediately I turned hard left to 330. I don't remember. This is now habit patterns taken over. I don't remember reaching down and jettisoning my fuel tanks. But when I jettison my fuel tanks and I turn to 330, I generate a huge con around my jet, which my wingman, who's 2.5 miles off my right wing, when he's looking now to the west to 330, he sees 3 fuel tanks flying off my jet. He sees a big, huge con ball, and he's like going, "Oh my God, did Rico just get hit?" As I roll out to 330, I take the F-15's autogun system, throw it out of the 330 heading, and immediately I get a lock, and it's at 8 miles. The good news is I've got good correlation, and I've got some radar essay as to what's there. The bad news is the rules of engagement that we had still at that point in Desert Storm required anything inside of 10 miles to be visually identified. Why did we have that in the rules of engagement? The rules of engagement were written for all of the platforms that were in the AOR to include the 117. At night, in certain scenarios, we could have found them. We wouldn't have known it was them. So that rule of engagement was put in place for protection.
Okay.
It didn't have a clause that said day or night. It just said the rule was if you get an auto gun system lock inside of 10 miles, you got a VID. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard spot.
Yeah. And
did not opt to wing it and take a BVR shot, even though I was carrying a MiG-29 Spike on my RWR, and I had not completed my ID matrix, so I had no idea of mode 1, mode 2, mode 4, or anything else.
The Spike you were talking about is coming from the 330 bearing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then just for everyone who might be listening later, the mode 1, 2, and 4 you're talking about are the different transponder settings, if you will, of an IFF. And that's a whole, we haven't even touched on that here on the show yet, but different ways to identify friend or foe, as IFF stands for. Okay.
So when I get spiked, I give as much radar data to my wingman verbally, and then I do a beam notch, if you will. I roll inverted, pull straight down to the dirt, and I am pointing straight at the ground. My goal there is, one, to get below the radar plane of motion of the MiG-29, so I can start becoming part of the ground clutter. I start pumping out a bunch of chaff to try and decoy my airplane, so the MiG has a hard time looking at me. It's not a hard solution for his airplane because he's got a blue sky background, so I got to make it hard for him. He's at 8,000 feet, so I'm passing through 35 and screaming straight at the dirt, and then as I'm starting my level off, I start the level off about 2,000 or 3,000 feet, and eventually get down to about 500 feet on the deck. But now the spike continues to follow my airplane off my right wing. So at least I know it's on the right wing somewhere, but I just can't find this guy. And I am doing the funky chicken in the cockpit, trying to find this guy in the sky, where, as you remember at Top Gun, you would say, hey, don't scan the sky, look in one spot, look for some contrast, and then you'll pick up the early tally-ho. If I had a Go camera on my head at that point, it would have looked like the spinning top, going crazy trying to find this guy, because the audio of the MiG-29 was obviously getting tighter and tighter. What I didn't know at the time, obviously, while I was flying, was that our total package team the EC-130 team was aware of what had just happened, and they were on his frequency, and they were jamming the piss out of him. So he was getting both radar jamming and audio jamming, which complicated, his eventual shoot solution. When I hear my wingman confirm he's completed the ID matrix, Rivet Joint gives him a declaration also that it's a MiG-29 hostile. At the time, I'm still going straight downhill when Mole calls Fox 3, or calls Fox, not Fox 3. So when I look up over my shoulder at high 7, I see his missile come off his airplane, start to generate a huge smoke trail, and the smoke trail is trailing across my tails to eventually is going to be pointing to my right 3 o'clock. Completely out of the wild blue, as I see his missile stop smoking, I use that little pencil beam of smoke and follow the line, and boom, I pick up a MiG-29, the silhouette pointing straight at me about 3 to 3.5 miles off my right wing. He's pure pursuing me the whole way. And then next thing I know, boom, big, huge sparkler in the sky, Moles, the missile hits that MiG-29 smack in the nose. I don't know if you've seen the pictures that are out there, but there's several pictures of the HUD field of view. They were recovered by some special ops guys, and the HUD field of view shows the AIM-7 Sparrow, the rods of the AIM-7 expanding, literally, feet in front of the HUD. So what's coming. It's just going to rip the pieces out of that rip that airplane to pieces.
All right. So that was one MiG-29. Was there more than one, I take it?
Yeah. So at that point, I am at 500 feet. Mole is about 25,000 feet. We're both kind of going same way, same day on a westerly kind of heading. And then again, Boner comes up on guard and says, Sitco, second group north 10. So at that point, I go, if I get the math wrong, that puts the guy 7 miles at my tail if I check the south. So I, boom, check the formation to north. And we both get a hit right at about 10 nautical miles on our radar scope. We both start to do the ID matrix. I get a hostile indication when I complete my ID matrix. My wingman gets a friendly. As it turns out, he actually has friendlies, because as high as he is, he's got friendlies way beyond the radar line of sight. Mm-hmm. So he's getting an error that is conservative, which is the right thing. Right. For me, I'm looking purely at the beam, looking up, and I don't have anything in the background. So that was the lesson learned in the debrief. Why did this happen like this? But the end result was I had one friendly declaration. I had one hostile. I declared myself as the eyeball on a shooter eye formation. And then so at about 4.5 miles, I started to do a pure pursuit from 5,000 feet to 8,000 feet, put the MiG-29 on the TD box. And the first time I could see him visually, because that was really now the requirement, he looked like a F-18. He looked like an F-15. He looked like everything that we flew because I couldn't see the background of the color background. Mm-hmm. So as it turns out, I continue my lead pursuit on him. I cross about 50 feet off of his left wing at a very high angle of it. I'm doing about 120 degrees nose up, and he's pretty much wings level. When I cross him right there is the first time I see the Iraqi flag and the brown and green camouflage, and I call, hostile MiG-29.
Wow.
Then I start a hard left turn, climbing left turn from where I was coming from. And when I look over my shoulder, he has started a level turn right on the horizon, hasn't changed his plane of motion. I don't know if he sees my wingman. But so when I see that he starts a level turn, I literally flip the airplane, roll inverted, and do a split S to the inside of the circle to now meet him at the first 180 with the 90 degree heading crossing angle. So I've already gained 90 degrees of angles on him. And then he still doesn't see me, or at least he's not responding to me. So I'm on the outside of his circle. I pull for everything that the Eagle has. And I probably think there was more, but when we got home, I had several pulls on the airplane in excess of 10 Gs on this particular fight. But I pulled to the inside of the circle, and when I crossed his extended tail and now get to the inside of the circle, I still have over 200 knots of closure on him. So he's not flying a very aggressive jet, but that's the first time he puts his lift vector on my jet and starts to turn in my direction. So I know now that he's aware. At this point, my wingman has sanitized the airspace around us, and he actually has a short window to say, "Hey, Rico, I can come in," and I just go stand by.
You got yours.
Yeah, you got yours on this. So
yeah,
that fight starts to obviously deteriorate closer and closer to the ground. We do 2 360s from about 6,000 feet to about 1,000 feet AGL. At about 1,000 feet AGL, I pull to the inside of the circle to try and get one, what I call really hard of the envelope aim 7 sparrow shot, just to bring the ASC circle in and take that shot. Other people have told me, and I believe it, when you're in an Eagle and, you're inside of 2,000 to 3,000 feet and you pull that much lead, it literally looks like you're going for a gunshot. So he's at about 800 to 600 feet. He rolls inverted and starts the classic split S, or what I thought was going to be the MiG-29 Cobra maneuver. When he rolls inverted, I was not going to follow him through that point because I can already sense that what I see in the desert, these aren't big trees. These are little bushes, and the bushes are getting big. So I pull quarter plane to the high 6 of the MiG-29, roll inverted, start to put my nose back into him, and he literally hasn't even hit perpendicular. His afterburners are now cooking. They weren't cooking before, and he hits the desert floor and starts to tumble for what seems to be several miles of maneuvering from there.
Wow.
And so very quickly after that, my wingman comes up and says, "Hey, tactical right side." So I look off to my right side, and sure enough, at 2 miles, there he is. And then we snap to south, and we start to get the hell out of Dodge.
Wow.
Yeah, when we did our check-in with ops back home, AWACS had already called in that we had the first 2 ship had 2 kills, and we had 2 kills, and so we were coming back, and then so I call in that the only expenditures I had was fuel tanks, and then my crew chief's like going, "Well, they obviously got something wrong," and I go, "Well, it's a little different than a standard mission, but we did get 2 kills." So,
yeah.
He was a very proud crew chief to put that first green star on the jet.
So you come back. What's it? I mean, when you guys come back into the overhead, are you faster than normal, lower than normal, or are you just kind of, hey, this is what we do and we did it? And I mean, was there a lot of celebration and jubilation, or is it kind of another day?
There wasn't a lot of celebration because the bottom line was it was another day coming, and you knew that you were going to be flying in not too many hours again. But yeah, so my wingman and I, we had this chat a couple 100 miles out, and I said, "So Mo, what do you think?" He goes, "This is when we're allowed to do an aileron roll, right?" And I go, "Well, that's kind of the way they did it in Vietnam, so let's do it." So we came in, normal speed, normal overhead speed for us, but just as we hit right before before the wheels would touch down, I plugged in the burners. I was pretty light as it was already, got the nose jacked up 30 degrees, started to accelerate, did an aileron roll, and then pitched back out. Needless to say, we both got our asses chewed.
Of course.
My boots were not very shiny when the wing commander came out and ripped me a new one. So he got me for my boots. He got me for my aileron roll, and I think he also got me for the fact that I hadn't shaved in 3 days because I hadn't seen a razor in 3 days. So
He was also insanely jealous. I'm just going to say right now, because he wasn't, were you a captain or a major at this point?
captain.
Okay. So he wasn't a captain anymore, which is young and fearless. He wasn't flying all these missions. He might've flown one or two occasionally, and he
Yeah.
didn't get a kill. So I'll just exonerate you on his behalf, if I may. All right. So this was the 19th. I forget what you said, 21st. So a couple days later,
26.
26. Okay. A week later.
Yeah.
So
So it's exactly
you're
a week
flying all
later.
week, right?
Flying all week. And so actually I'm flying 114 again.
Okay.
And that's why she has her 2 stars.
Excellent.
And so this day is a terrible weather day.
Oh.
All of the strikers are grounded on the coalition side.
All right.
The only airplanes that are flying are, obviously AWACS, rivet joint, F-15s, tankers, and then so it was really more of a DCA environment. We were flying a very non-traditional formation in that we were literally 50 miles in a lead trail formation, and we were just doing big, huge caps that covered as much ground as we could. At one point, we had just come off the tankers. We had probably done 1 or 2 turns in the cap, and then AWACS comes up and says, "Hey, need you guys to come up on secure voice," and so we come up secure voice. At that point, Rory says, "Okay, they want us to go secure voice and start looking like a formation," and so I start to close the distance between myself and his element. And then AWACS tells us that we are getting some signals from the H2 airfield, far western Iraq. And the signals that, the comms that we're on is we're being told that there's engines being started. And what we end up finding was that there was one of the nations, I don't want to reveal the nation, but one of their people was in a secure location, and he had observation, he had eyes on.
Oh, wow.
And so he was confirming that there was engine starts on the runway.
Oh, gosh.
And he went one step further and also confirmed that this was a cousin of Saddam, who was one of the guys in the jets.
Wow.
And so we reform the formation, and we start to head west southwest in what we call the Wall of Eagles. And so Rory has directed nobody to lock anything, just do radar search. And so everybody's got their radar responsibilities. Basically, Rory's got the low look. I've got a high look. Rory's wingman has a high look. My wingman has a low look, as we divided up the radar responsibilities for the 4-ship. We start to build a radar picture. They did not ever go into a res cell. They basically stayed in a VIC, in a leader with 2 wingman formation. And then they were also basically navigating off of the main highway that was coming out of the H2, H3 airspace.
Okay.
And so we are up at 35,000 feet. It's walks off all the way down to the surface. And as it turns out, at about 20 miles, we see this big, huge sucker hole in the cloud deck, and we go, "Hey, let's jump through the sucker hole, and maybe we'll see, we'll have a visual on the shots." We come down through the sucker hole. The cloud deck is right around 18 or 19,000 feet. So we drop down to about 14,000 feet. So we're not highlighting ourselves against the deck.
Mm-hmm.
And the formation stays the same. It's a VIC formation. So at that point, Rory calls the targeting. He's got leader. His number 2's got the northern wingman. I've got the southern wingman, and my wingman's got a search responsibility.
Okay.
We sort it out, and then we start seeing missiles firing. Rory launches at about 11 miles. At 11 miles, I can start to break out the wing formation of the MiG-23. I can see that my specific MiG-23 in the TD box, and so I'm going to be waiting till about 9 miles to take my shot. Rory's shot doesn't detonate on the MiG, but as I'm watching his missile come off the rail and go towards the MiG, it's very clear his missile gets really, really close to the fuselage. So I think the missile actually goes into the intake of the engine. So it doesn't fuse. But what you see about 2 or 3 seconds later is the airplane starts an easy left-hand turn to the north and then starts to smoke and then starts to turn into a ball of fire. In that process, Rory has already pulled lead on his MiG as it's turning to the north. He's getting ready to take another shot. And of course, that MiG eventually blows up. So he turns into a ball of fire. When Kimo and I both shoot, we still got about a 1.5 aspect on our shot. And so when we shoot and the MiG-23, the lead MiG-23 turns to the north, the two wingmen both check to the south and they heat up the intercept on our missiles to basically a pure head aspect shot. And sure enough, both of them nearly hit nearly simultaneously on those two MiGs. There was a major highway that they were navigating on, and on the north side and on the south side of that highway, they're flying at about 300 feet AGL. The fireball that ensued scorched those two air pieces of ground right around the highway. So as we're coming out of that, Rory directs me to flow west and sanitize west. He flows north and sanitize north. We both sanitize the airspace. There's nobody left. And then he says, all right, Rico, snap south and let's go to the tanker. So sure enough, I snap to south and I go to a 20-mile scope. And sure enough, in about 16 miles, I get this big, huge blob hit at the center of my scope. And I'm going, what the hell is that? So I lock it up. I do a real quick mode 3 look, and it's our tanker guy. And I go, hey, do you realize that you're inside of Iraq? And he comes back and he goes, yep. And do you realize that you don't have enough gas to make it to the original tanker track? And I go, yep. And I go, thank you. Start your turn. And sure enough, I'm carrying about 600 knots. He starts his turn. He's got 13, 14 miles in front of us. When he starts his turn, I'm literally just pulling right into the boom position and start getting gas. Roto gets gas. And then Rory and Kimo come in behind us, and they get their gas and they head out.
So I'm guessing no aileron roll when you return on this one?
No aileron roll. We had already been reprimanded severely.
Yeah, you'd be a fool to do that. Let me ask you this. How many people, if any, at this point have 2 kills in the war?
There is 4 of us in my squadron that have 2 kills.
Okay.
And so I think there was one guy up in Schusterberg, up in the northern watch Turkey operations that had 2 kills.
So I just want to ask you this. I mean, when you come inside with the tapes and the amazing experience you just had on the first one, obviously I can imagine everyone's huddled around watching the tapes, asking you questions. You're, excited. On the second one, is it the same, or is there an element of people saying, oh, I can't believe how lucky you are, or it's old hat? I mean, I'm not saying, are you like a different person suddenly? Are you playing it down? But I guess I just wonder what the different feeling is on a second one in that case.
So I'll be very honest with you. Because of the ops tempo that we had as a squadron, I didn't see many people, other folks in flight suits, except my 4-ship, and then whoever was the top 3 on the day when you landed. You didn't get to see a lot of folks. Wow. You were literally, we called it leadership by yellow stickies, because the squadron commander would put yellow stickies on our life support peg if he wanted you to do something different, because he was fine too. Yeah. We were all hands on deck, everybody fly your butt off. And we did not, we had the highest number of hours per Eagle squadron, and the highest number of sorties. And we also had the highest FMC rate of all the Eagles in the AOR. And so, we were when we started to see the ATO break out and see what they were asking us to do, we started to screen for more bodies. And of course that didn't happen coming from the, we didn't get more relief from the folks downrange. They said, hey, the relief comes when you guys get relieved. You guys got to fly your goes.
Yeah.
And to the credit of the squadron commander and the leadership team, we didn't turn down a single air tasking order mission.
Nice.
Well, we picked up a lot, and I know one of my missions, and again purely in a DCA world, ended up being a 16-hour mission because the Saudi F-15s didn't come and man their vault period. So when I was finished with my PB&Js and my water and my piddle packs ready to go home, the answer from AWACS was stand by. You're now the second cap. And the only thing I had left was a go pill and water. So now I got to take a go pill. So yeah, it was, those are some of the days.
All right, well, what did I tell you? Is Rico the man or what? That dude is awesome. Now, I know you're counting. 1, 2, wait, Jello, you said 3 kills. That's right. Come on, sorry guys. I don't want this video to go on forever. Plus, you can watch the entire unedited 2-hour video talking in more depth about all those kills and the third one in Allied Force right there on our Patreon page. Go check out patreon.com, look for the Fighter Pilot Podcast, and there will be a link to the 2-hour video. You can support the show and enjoy Rico and a lot of other great content. So check it out. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on Patreon.